Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ArcServe and StorageCraft UDP and OX Complete Ransomware Protection webinar featuring Christy Martini, Sales Engineer, and Kai Steinbach, Principal Product Manager. Before we get started today, please note you can submit text questions to our presenter at any time throughout the presentation. Your questions will be addressed either during the session or we will follow up with you afterward. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and I would now like to pass the time to our first presenter, Christy Martini.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you, everyone, today for joining, whether it's morning, evening, or night for everybody. We appreciate your time. As Megan mentioned, we're going to talk today about two products that we've recently we've married together. We were talking about ransomware today. We're talking about overall protection of your business, of your industry, of your data. And recently, both ArcServe and StorageCraft have merged. I want to cover a little bit of housekeeping today. And we've actually taken kind of best of breed products from both ArcServe and StorageCraft and merged them together. So hopefully everyone is aware of ArcServe and or StorageCraft. But we're talking about years and years in the industry. ArcServe obviously established in 1983. Very worldwide company, been around a long time, been in the business a long time, and dealing with your mid to enterprise customers, as well as StorageCraft, who's really established themselves as the MSP business since 2003 here in the US. So as these two companies merge together, what we're trying to accomplish and what we have accomplished is creating a data set, a product set that encompasses just about everything from your DR solutions. We cover everything from your small, medium business, all the way to the enterprise, with a very, very diverse set that complements one another very, very well. Today, we're obviously talking about ransomware. It's the number one concern that we're dealing with in today's business, today's news. We obviously in the United States just dealt with a huge ransomware pipeline concern. And when it comes to ransomware, it's really not when you get or if you will get hit, it's when you will get hit. How do we prepare for those things? How do we address those things? How do we, make sure that there's no business disruption to your business, to your partner's business? How do you deal with that? And that's really what we're going to deal with today. We're going to take the best of breed from both product sets, from our UDP product today, as well as adopting it with our OneSafe product. So as we talk about what are the solutions? I personally like to talk about what are we solving when we talk about solutions today. Not what the products do, but what concerns that you have, what's keeping you up at night, and what's keeping your customers up at night to make sure that their business is not disrupted. They're not paying out any sort of ransomware or having unexpected costs to deliver with that. So that's how we're going to address today's presentation. Before I hand it over to Kai, I would like to talk about a couple of things that we deal with both products. Data security and ransomware concerns, absolutely. DR is not just disaster recovery. There's a lot of prevention. There's a lot of different aspects to your DR plan. How do you protect your data, whether it's sitting live or whether you're backing up or archiving that data? Expansion growth. This is something that's everyone is dealing with today. When it comes to data, everyone has issues today with compliance, with data growth, with not being able to delete their data because of those compliance needs and the ever-growing storage needs. Cost of downtime, everybody's aware of. That's very, very simple to address. For every minute you're down, there's money associated with that. And if you're down for more than 48 hours, there is potential disaster from that from a business perspective. So how do we address all of these today? So again, we're going to focus on two products today, UDP, as well as our OneSafe appliance. And we're going to talk about how they complement one another and protect you from those unexpected costs, as well as any sort of downtime associated with any unexpected failures. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kai.
Thank you very much, Chris. So we're going to continue here on the slide. Just one more slide, really focusing on ransomware, because it's really important to understand the big enemy that we're fighting. So Arcserve has been a business partner of Sophos for a while, and from Sophos comes this this chart here at the top that shows just how exponentially the ransom payouts are growing. And this is a quarterly report, and the figures here are actually per incident. So this is not an industry total. This is a single incident. The averages are quite high already, especially if you look at them from an SMB point of view. But you have to keep in mind that obviously ransomware is, it has turned into quite a professional business from the black hat community, where they know they can press charges by being intelligent, and they will adopt the charges to the industry. So if you're a small mom and pop shop, they will adopt the charges so that you can, just about afford it, even though it will be painful. If you're a large enterprise, if you're a multi-million-dollar company, be prepared to have really big ransomware requests coming your door. They will be dynamic, matching your revenue and your bookings. One other thing that we've sadly had to observe was that ransomware is really being productized. So there's it's almost like an enterprise where ransomware can now be provided as a service between different darknet members, where some of them run the central services and some others are investigating the potential targets and then launching attacks and working on the ransomware communication with regards to the payout demands, and then handing over encryption keys and so on. They might even have support hotlines. They might have cold calling where they actually check, like, have you received this? Can you, do you know what to do? Is your finance department involved? Because you can get your data back if you would pay us, and so on. They even started cold calling not only the targets, but even the customers of their targets. That's how sophisticated they are. So they might call one of your customers and tell them, look, hey, you know that your company XYZ is actually currently facing with a ransomware issue. So I hope you give them a call and demand that they pay the ransom so that they can continue their business, because otherwise maybe even your data will be at risk. So this is how far it has been, the threat basically has developed. But at the same time, our normal IT complexity has grown, and you see some of those aspects on the right-hand side. We had servers and NAS and SAN and LAN for the last 20 or 25, 30 years, so that's nothing new. But certainly the cloud infrastructure as a service and software as a service adoption over the last, let's say 5 to 7 years, it has been so exponential, it has been crazy. And what comes along with that is that once you start having a data center that's spread between different clouds and consuming SaaS products across the globe, basically, you will be in a situation where your local network and the edge firewall can no longer be your first and last level of defense, right? You're going offline and just continuing offline is no longer an option for most of the customers. So at least what we see here at Arcserve, it's only very few like high level government institutions, banks, and really just some insurance brokers that would be able to continue in a threat situation in a complete offline mode. Most others, they work just with so many internet connected systems that an offline mode would be completely impossible. So this is just a little bit to set the scene. And now we come to the next slide, where we can look at some of these strategies that can help. And here it's really, really, really important to understand that this is never just a a single item or a single strategy kind of situation that will give me all the protection I need. Now, the reason why we are listing lots of different items here in this circle is because you will need multiple lines of protection. So on the top for cybersecurity, it's really important to have really good identity access management and also really good privileged access management. One example that I would like to share here is that we have seen in many customers that just for, let's say for just convenience sake, some of the IT administrators just use the IT domain level credentials all day long for their normal activities like reading emails or surfing the internet or looking at PDFs that they receive. That is actually quite dangerous. We highly recommend to separate out administrative rights from those used for day-to-day activities because that itself will also be a line of defense. So going in a circle a little bit further, so the one area that ArcServe and StorageCraft have been active over the last years primarily is disaster recovery, and of course we always do this based on secure backups. So this has been our bread and butter for many years. I think also the 3-2-1 and 3-2-1-1 backup strategy is pretty known. It really talks about having multiple copies of your data in at least 2 physical locations. At least one of them should be offline, one of them should be immutable. And that's really something that I think is a little bit of a backup industry trend. Immutable storage, you've seen this here at the bottom as an additional bubble. This really talks about having data in a way that no ransomware could modify or encrypt or delete or corrupt the data. So immutable means immutable. It cannot be modified. I will be able to restore, to recover from that. It is really something that helps against that. But the kind of LIME processes are also really important. So working with multi-factor authentication, having good disaster recovery practices that we actually test on a regular basis, and really important, the human aspect in the whole chain, the employee cybersecurity training. All those are really important because the whole chain will only be as strong as the weakest link in it. Yeah, I think everyone can find something in this slide to take home and think about. And now we're going to present you how we are helping with our solution stack, with our portfolio. And this is basically the summary slide of the whole presentation today. We're presenting our ArcServe data protection solutions together with the immutable storage for on-premises, which will be OneSafe, which we're going to go into details later. Now, on the left-hand side, ArcServe data protections, you see them listed out twice here. So on the left-hand side is a little diagram for our software solution, which is ArcServe UDP, or Unified Data Protection. And the same software, the same UDP, is also available in an all-in-one appliance form factor that runs the same enterprise backup for your cybersecurity. It can do disaster recovery in the box itself, and it scales up really well. And I'm going to show you a few slides later on where we list some of the hardware options that are available. But what's really cool is that, at least from a software stack, from a capabilities point of view, both the software and the appliance have exactly the same functionality. They only really differ in the way that we ship it out. So one is a Windows software that you install on your own Windows software, Windows server, which could be a virtual machine or a dedicated physical backup server. And the ArcServe appliance obviously ships in a rack mountable hardware form factor. We have smaller units that just occupy half of that size of what you see on screen, and we have these and also larger ones. Now, how we then use them together is the interesting aspect, and I hope that this is the topic that you all guys, that you came here for. And the next slide shows this a little bit. So what we're going to do is, in the case of the appliance, which is the top diagram, the backups will first land on the ArcServe appliance itself, but then we're going to create an additional copy, and we're going to store that inside the OneSafe node or the OneSafe cluster, because it will be the OneSafe that gives us the on-premise immutable snapshots. I'm going to find out later how this works. Now, if you are not interested in an ArcServe appliance form factor, if you'd rather consume it as a software solution, then the bottom diagram is for you. And in that case, we can even offer that the backup data directly goes onto the OneSafe, so there's no intermediate step. The OneSafe will be your secondary storage from a backup point of view, and it will, of course, have the same immutability built in. The bottom diagram doesn't show that again, but it is obviously the same OneSafe functionality and the same immutable snapshots built in also there. Yeah. Yeah, and with this, I think that's the overview. So let's now dive a little bit more into those ArcServe UDP, ArcServe Unified Data Protection Solution details, just to give you a little bit more meat to the bone here. So that you understand what we're capable of doing. ArcServe UDP and the data protection solutions in hard and software is meant to do the complete ransomware prevention, protecting the IT infrastructure, and making sure that we are secure from any kind of incident. The large focus in recent years is obviously on ransomware, on hackers, but please keep in mind that obviously the same recovery methods are available in other scenarios as well. So that could be still a server outage, a misconfiguration. It could be logical errors where you actually revert back maybe to an older recovery point. You can always choose, do I go to the latest data, or do I go a few hours or a few business days back when maybe things were misconfigured and data corruption occurred without wanting it, just based on a mistake. And obviously the same DR is used for other scenarios that could be things like a building fire, a theft, break-in with theft, or it could be natural disasters like a flooding or similar situations. All of that is done in a really simple way. So you see here on the right-hand side, reduced complexity is really important. Everything is included under a single interface. We didn't split out, for example, the Office 365 into one separate product, or the Linux backups into yet another separate one. No, everything is managed under a single roof, and in a very logical way, so that an administrator, once they learn how to do the backup for, let's say, one hypervisor, they can do it for the others as well, and it will work really, really well. And with that simplicity and that ease of use comes a reduction of cost, just because the way that backups will work and the way that it is simple to manage, it will help you with the time spent on backups. The other cost reduction factor is usually the way that we reduce the data with our built-in deduplication. But let's go now into the slide. I think this builds out slightly. So if we look at some of the things that come here, so we will show the orchestrated ransomware recovery. So that's at the heart of us. It's delivered as a partnership with the ArcServe Backup NDR software, together with the Sophos ransomware protection that runs on our backup server and protects the data and makes sure that nothing could happen to it. Then on the left side, we will talk a little bit about the compatible source systems. So if we build this out, you see that we can do obviously native Windows and Linux backups, but also hypervisor backups from several different brands. The latest one, and that's why it's kind of painted here in the purple bold font, is the Nutanix AHV, the Nutanix Acropolis hypervisor, where we do offer similar agentless snapshot-based API integration for the backup of those virtual machines. We integrate with the Nutanix Prism in exactly the same way as we for example, integrate with VMware vCenter on the vSphere side. So the list goes on, then we talk a little bit about the applications. So the on-premise Exchange and SQL servers are still the most popular applications that we protect, even though many customers, especially smaller ones, are migrating slowly into O365. But one enterprise level database is what we recently added, which is Oracle databases. But we had Oracle database support already for a long time for standalone nodes, but not based on Amen and not for real application clusters together with the ASM, the automatic storage management. So these are cluster systems where the operating system, if it is Linux or Windows, they wouldn't see those files locally anymore. So a normal like system level snapshot can no longer capture this data. And also for the customers running those, typically the Oracle database administrator, they want to use Amen functionality for both backups and restore. So we have that built in. It's completely integrated into the UDP, into the ArcServe Unified Data Protection UI, and will be managed just like the other source node systems that we protect. Just skimming through the list further down, you see some of the hardware-based snapshot providers being listed, like NetApp, HP, 3PAR, and Nimble. Those are also enterprise functionality, enterprise-level functionalities, where we integrate with the snapshot provider when running the either Hyper-V or vSphere VM-level snapshots. And the benefit of that is that the hypervisor doesn't need to keep the snapshot alive for all the time that the backup might take, because we use the hardware-based snapshot instead. So that works pretty well. All right, going further down, yeah, obviously Office 365 with its sub-services is a really big focus as a source system. All of that can be protected. And now we come to the right-hand side, and I explain you a little bit of how the immutability options work here. So on the top, you see the OneSafe. So that's our new combined offering with the immutable on-premises storage. What we previously offered as immutable is still available. So we still have a cloud option for ArcServe UDP Cloud Hybrid, where data gets replicated in. That is also immutable because it's using a functionality where data can only be added in. It cannot be modified, it cannot be deleted, it cannot be purged. It is only, it's an add-on service where from the outside, so from the source system, from your on-premise appliance, for example, you cannot modify retention. The retention is done completely independently inside the cloud hybrid environment. And for that reason, it is secure from an attack that might originate in the on-prem environment. So that is also immutable in the ArcServe hosted environment. Or if you decide that you want to host your own secondary cloud copy, you could keep it on one of the cloud systems that are listed at the bottom here. And one of the nice things is here you see it also immutable cloud storage. So for S3 storage, there is a way of enabling object lock for when we write the data to it, so that copy will also be immutable. So with those three items, ArcServe basically is the vendor that provides immutable storage across the whole portfolio, across wherever you want to store the data, on-prem, in the ArcServe cloud, or in a public cloud. And now, if you just keep this slide in mind real quick, we're going to now compare this with the appliance. And if we go to the next slide now, Chris, you actually see that this builds out in exactly the same way. And if you've listened to me earlier, that shouldn't be a surprise to you, because I told you that the ArcServe appliance runs the same ArcServe Unified Data Protection, exactly like it is available in software. So it's really no secret that here you will see exactly the same functionality on the left, exactly the same destinations on the right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you were expecting this. All right, so with this, let's just talk a little bit about the combination of Sophos and Arcserve that we have built in. We really see this as your first line of defense and your last line of defense. So the first line of defense is the bundled Sophos Intercept X Advanced for Server that is included with our offerings, so that we can protect from ransomware by detecting it and by stopping it before it even becomes active. So the Sophos functionality here is really good. It's not, we consider it best of breed, and it's not something that Arcserve or any other backup vendor could easily reproduce with a small side project. So for that reason, we really have decided that partnering here with an industry leader is the best thing to do. But as the last line defense, the Arcserve appliance itself has your DR covered. So the platform itself has lots of CPU cores, lots of memory, and really strong backup efficiency with a deduplication ratio that will amaze you in order to run from that backup and recover directly on the appliance if you are in a situation where you need that. So with those two combined in the same offering, we really think that this will give you peace of mind and hopefully be your get out of jail card should you need it. All right, so this is basically the offering. And now I just have a little bit of the numbers for you on the scalability. So our Arcserve appliance models start at an effective capacity of 12 terabytes. The first three items you see here, these are 1U form factor appliances. And starting on the fourth line with 72 terabytes of effective capacity all the way down to half a petabyte, these are 2U models. So these are our 9000 series models that can do backup and DR and backup. And then on the next slide, you see here the X series models. So these are a little bit bigger, but they have effective capacities reaching up all the way to 3 petabytes. They can be expanded with a lot more memory. They have a lot more SSDs, a lot more networking availability, and hence are for some of our biggest customers. Yeah, and with this, I hope you have seen a little glimpse on what the Arcserve UDP, the unified data protection, can offer, both in software and delivered as appliances. And with that, I hand it back over to Chris to get exciting news on OneSafe.
Thanks, Kai. Appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed that section and realized that UDP in itself is a phenomenal solution. But we always, again, talk about the components and how much you're protecting your data, because realistically, just having your DR solution, unfortunately, it's just not good enough these days, right? You need to make sure that you're able to restore that data. So I'm going to switch it over to OneSafe and the appliance. And as Kai mentioned, this is an on-prem appliance that we talk about that's very versatile. So we're obviously going to focus today on the ability to complement the UDP solution, but I don't want to limit that story. We complement regardless what your DR solution is today. And unlike several appliances out there, we also have the ability to I want to say, mimic a file server as well. So it's a multi-purpose storage device. But as we focus today, it's immutable. So you've heard that word a whole bunch of times today. Immutable being not being able to modify the objects on the storage to prevent the ability, to prevent them being modified so that you can restore, right? So the OneSafe platform is it's a 2U storage device. I'm going to get into a little bit of features later and sizing later, but realistically, we're talking about again, multi-purpose file shares, backups, archives, engineering media. So what does that really mean? I want to talk about tier 2 and tier 3 storage. We're not an IOPS intensive device. We're very scale out, so it's grow as you go. And it's going to complement, again, your DR plan, whether it's UDP, whether it's StorageCraft, or whether it's any of our competitors, on being able to retain data for longer periods of time, to help with your compliance as you grow data, as well as restore data from you've been hit, right? Long story short, it's not a matter of when, if you get hit with ransomware, if you get hit with a virus, if you get hit with crypto, whatever you want to call it, it's the ability to restore that data, and that's really what we're providing here. So not a big fan of talking directly to slides, but the big takeaways here are immutable snapshots. This is storage with enterprise features, right? So we have dedupe compression and those snapshots for that data. And we can connect to your networks both as an SMB share or an NFS share. So whether you want it to fit into your existing storage plan, existing DR plan, attach it as an NFS share to your hypervisor, to any sort of servers out there, so it appears as direct attached storage. It's great. If you want it to appear as a NAS on your network and replace a file server with a UNC path, we do that very well as well. In fact, that's another very good use case for this product, is to replace any file servers in the network. File servers have a very interesting story over the last 8 to 10 years. When customers move to virtualization, you talk about P2V, physical to virtual conversions. Most products, most servers were just P2V because it was better scalability, better resources, better use of money. And realistically, we find out that file servers, all they really do is serve out an SMB share, serve out a UNC path. So how much are you spending today on operating systems, protecting that data, patching that data, for no other reason than serving out a UNC path? So again, that's the great part about OneSafe today, and its ability to both complement your DR plan as well as fit into your storage story moving forward. When we speak to customers all the time, questions I love to ask are you spending too much on storage, and is storage getting out of control? Absolutely. Everyone answers that question, yes. And this is one of the perfect solutions to have a discussion about. Will it cut down on how many SSDs you're using? Will it cut your costs? Will it protect your data? All of those answers are yes as we move forward with the solution. Getting back to ransomware, the topic of the day, this is really where we kind of fit a niche, and everybody's budgets are opening up for ransomware for the appropriate reasons. StorageCraft actually acquired this product, I believe 3 years ago, and we fit into our portfolio very, very well. And it complements every DR solution out there today. Immutable snapshots, plain and simple. They cannot be overwritten. You'll notice on the right side of this screen, there's going to be a sliding scale. So this is a picture of our GUI on how to address how long you want to keep your snapshots. We do have customers that will literally keep these snapshots forever and use these as file servers to retain data. You do have the ability to go back and retain old files, almost like a versioning process with Windows, if you choose to do so. If you're complementing your DR plan, again, you can. This is a sliding scale. This is going to affect your usable storage, and this is something that if you do move forward with this product, you're going to want to work with one of our ArcServe partners or us directly to make sure that we've tuned this in for you to make sure that you find a sweet spot for how long you want to protect your data. And again, as we go into some technical demos in future webinars, we'll address how this addresses your usable storage as well as productivity within the unit. Recovering from snapshots is extremely simple. We can do individual files, folders, or actually complete shares. So you're giving yourself flexibility. You're not dealing with having to recover the entire box. We do all of these features that we're talking about, whether it's dedupe, compression, or snapshotting at the share level. So as we create a share, and as I mentioned before, we're talking about SMB and NFS shares, you get to choose the level of protection that you want to deal with. In fact, this is on the right-hand side, what you're going to get every single time you create an individual share. So that's very important to understand, as well as what you don't see here is replication. We do replicate between these boxes extremely well natively. So if you have any off-site compliance needs, we can do it at a share level. And since it's done at a share level, you do not have to match on both locations. So you can have, 2 or 3 units in one location replicating to 1 unit off-site. And that's something that's extremely important. As Kai mentioned before, you're talking about your 3-2-1-1 process and your ability to do so. Most people don't necessarily agree with what your 3-2-1-1-1 is, but you have to think about what your promises and your compliance needs to the business are. We want to make sure that you've got multiple copies, multiple locations, off-site, and immutable, right? So that's the general concept of your 3-2-1-1, and you can do that with the UDP product as well as this, whether you shift it off-site from UDP or whether you natively replicate these between boxes. And lastly here, continuous data protection, we do every 90 seconds for the first hour. So if a file's ever touched, and this is object-based, or is object ever touched, we're going to back up or snapshot every 90 seconds, and then we'll slow that down over time. So if data is not being touched, we're going to snapshot it less frequently. However, again, this is a great way to deal with both your DR as well as your archiving, to make sure that you're being able to have that data readily available if your entire network gets encrypted or infected. Now, as I mentioned before, it's a scale out approach. The simplest way to put this is it's object-based storage. You're not dealing with LUNs, you're not dealing with CIF shares, you're not having to provision, you're not having to deal with your typical RAID issues, right? So if you're looking at a storage project, a lot of customers are in a situation of, well, now I need to do 3 to 5 year planning. 3 to 5 year planning almost doesn't exist today, right? Because the explosion of storage is over and beyond any comprehensible understanding of what's going to happen in 2 years, because in 2 years the applications that we're dealing with probably don't exist. Or your municipalities today are dealing with contracts, your hospitals are dealing with images, x-ray images, your architectural firms are dealing with CAD drawings. The explosion of storage is just something that we're all dealing with, no matter what your vertical or what your business is today. So with OneSafe, you're looking here on the right-hand side, and I'm going to get into models a little bit later, but your first unit, your second unit, your third unit are going to have the same overhead. We can grow these up to 7 individual units before we actually have to, or before we recommend creating a new ring. What does that mean? We can have up to about a 650 terabyte share before we have to, before we recommend getting a new ring. So if you need a certain amount of storage today, that's what you buy today. You don't have to provision, you don't have to over provision, you don't have to guess, because it's going to be the same cost and the same overhead as you grow those devices. So as we talk about, again, just kind of reiterating this fact, everybody's terrified of forklift upgrades. I think that if you've been in the industry long enough, you've either run out of storage in a storage array and you've had to go ahead and forklift that to a new storage array, or you've over provisioned that data and you've spent XYZ dollars and not used all of that. So we really take those question marks out of the growth here on how to accomplish these and right size these. And I'm gonna, as I move into the next slide, talk about sizing a little bit. As I mentioned before, these are mostly 2U boxes. We do have a flash unit that is a 1U box. As I go through here, you're talking about your 4412, 4417. Our 44 series are built on Dell hardware, and the second 2 digits are the amount of slots within that hardware. Slide down here, you'll see I can do 12 terabyte drives in the 4412, 17 12 terabyte drives in the 4417. And because of the object-based storage, we're going to actually give you 2 options here, how much protection of your data that we do. And we have the ability to do either worth your data. That's going to directly affect how much usable space you have. So most of our customers do actually utilize the 2 copies worth of data. So I'm going to kind of do those calculations today for you, and obviously we can help you with this at a conversation at a later date. But the 4412, you're looking at 60 to 65 terabyte usable on a single 2U box. On a 4417, you're looking at about 90 terabyte usable on a single 2U box. So going back to how we talk about growth, it's the same overhead, right? So if you're used to your typical RAID, you're used to your typical, existing storage arrays where the overhead and the RAID differential changes, it's going to be the same. Box 1 is 65 terabyte usable, box 2 is 65 terabyte usable. And again, we talk about stacking 7 of these on top of one another. So kind of just in summary a little bit here, what we were talking about with what Kai was talking about of all the benefits of UDP, and you could be using, again, StorageCraft Solutions or any of our competitors, off-siting this data or offloading the data to the OneSafe appliance is going to give you cost-effective storage that, again, can be used for multi-purpose, does not have to be just dedicated to your storage, is going to give you predictable cost, predictable storage patterns, a growth pattern, and then most importantly, immutable to your storage. So I didn't touch on the 5410 very much. This is an SSD appliance, and it is available. If you want to have discussions about this, that's something that we're going to talk about, have you talk to our engineers about. We do position this a little bit differently than we do today, but obviously it has the same management and feature set that our 44 series do as well. So I just want to make sure that you know that's in our portfolio. And then lastly here, as far as connectivity, we do have the ability to do Ethernet or SFP plus with these. So very simple out of the box to get up and running. I can honestly say from a personal standpoint, I showed up on a client and had, 200 terabyte up and running with no drives in the units in under 45 minutes. So just like our UDP products and most of our product set, very simple to manage, very simple and easy to use, and is going to complement your DR plan emphatically, so that way you can recover that data when you do have any sort of issues. With that said, I think I'm going to hand it over to Megan. I'm not sure if we got any questions available or out there that we want to address. Kai, do you see anything that we need to address from a question perspective?
So I got one question about the Office 365 protection in Arxif UDP on how this is licensed. So this is actually quite flexible. If you buy the hardware option, if you buy the appliance, then everything is included. You don't need to worry about your Office 365 user account in your tenant. You can just protect whatever fits on your box, and you can have that simply protected. If you buy Arxif UDP software, the preferred way of doing that is now also a subscription-based service where the source data is measured in terabytes. And again, here, Office 365 is truly included. It's completely universal. So it doesn't matter if you are growing from, I don't know, from 300 to 500 colleagues. The license would be the same as long as the data fits. Only if you don't use that license, if you basically have like a socket-based licensing approach, then Office 365 is a separate license that actually counts the users, and you simply would match the Office 365 user account that you pay for in like towards Microsoft and use the same number for the quantity that you need for the Arxif UDP side. That's how it works.
Great. I'm looking at other questions here. It looks like I don't have any other questions. If that's the case and there's no other questions that I see out there, if there are any other questions come in, then we'll obviously address them after this webinar. We'll happily reach out to you directly. If there are no other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Megan to talk about a promo. And if we've got any other questions that came in, we'll address those right after we address the promo.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris and Kai. This has been very informative. And as mentioned, if you are interested, we are offering a very limited time promotion at 50% off the ArcServe ransomware bundle. Or if you'd just like additional information, we invite you to sign up for a demo or a free trial at the links listed here, if you don't mind advancing. And I've also included all of these links in the chat as well. Please note that this webinar has been recorded and we will be emailing it to you so that you can watch it on demand along with all of these links. We appreciate you taking time to join us today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. And like I said, if there's any other questions that come in, we'll happily reach out to you directly. And as Megan said, please reach out to us for any sort of demos or any sort of POCs. We're happy to help you out and make sure that you're happy and use the products very well. Appreciate it.